Windsor, at the start of the 70s. It had been the Queen's own family home for the past 20 years. She had brought up her 4 children there. She'd balanced the demands of her extraordinary job with keeping her mother happy and her husband out of trouble.
The Queen's loved Windsor ever since she's been a little girl. The castle has so many fond memories for her. It's her childhood of horses and dogs, it's her family, it's her parents, and also it's the place really where her romance with Prince Philip really began.
And in 1972, it was time to celebrate that relationship. The 20th of November was the Queen and Prince Philip's 25th wedding anniversary. There was a carriage parade through London to St Paul's Cathedral and a state dinner. And the whole royal clan was asked to assemble at Windsor in the White Drawing Room for a special photograph. The image of a relaxed, happy and united family would make the front pages of newspapers around the world. These family images were vital to the House of Windsor.
They're meant to show that this is a royal family who are happy, contented, devoted to duty and devoted to each other.
It's seen as an important way of projecting the stability of monarchy. It's a dangerous game and it relies upon those people involved to stay together. Otherwise you are building yourself up only to be knocked down.
And over the next 20 years, this smiling family did collapse in bitter divisions, as no less than 4 marriages ended in scandal. Windsor became home to one of the unhappiest families in Britain, as their secrets spilled out from behind the castle walls. The first deep crack in the facade came 4 years after the photo, on 22nd of February 1976. As the Queen settled down to Sunday breakfast with the papers, she got a nasty shock.
On the front of the News of the World here you had Princess Margaret in her swimming costume, and next to her, shock horror, was her toy boy, this young man, Roddy Llewellyn, 17 years younger, you know.
The problem was that Margaret was married. She and photographer Tony Armstrong-Jones had been together for 16 years. They had 2 children and appeared to be a perfect couple. But now the world knew the truth. The Queen's sister was having an affair.
Yes, I suppose that was rather kind of juicy scandal. There were all the pictures of Princess Margaret on the beach at Moustique with Roddy. And so this was quite a new departure for a royal princess, wasn't it?
That photograph really precipitated everything. It kind of was like the cork being taken out of the bottle. After that, there was a flood of speculation.
As soon as Princess Margaret returned from holiday, she headed straight for Windsor to hide from the press. But her marriage came under intense scrutiny, and there was plenty to uncover. Because behind the scenes, the royal family knew the relationship had been in trouble for years. From the start, Margaret and Tony had battled. Windsor Castle itself had been a source of friction. Margaret wanted to spend her weekends there, as she had rooms at Royal Lodge with the Queen Mum. Tony preferred to get away from the in-laws by going to his own cottage in Sussex.
Princess Margaret, who loved Royal Lodge, was very keen on having a country house in Windsor Great Park, and the Queen actually offered them a site at Sunning Hill. Princess didn't really want to leave Windsor. It was, after all, where she'd grown up. She'd spent her childhood. So this really soured relations for quite a while.
Throughout their marriage, Margaret spent lonely weekends at Windsor, and she was often seen out on the town alone.
By this time, my own view was that Princess Margaret was at her unhappiest. I think she was drinking too much and just not a happy lady at all.
Her affair with the 23-year-old Roddy was not the first in her marriage, but previously she'd always been discreet and got away with it. Not this time. Now her family at Windsor had to confront a previously unthinkable possibility.
On one occasion, when the Queen Mother was walking in the garden at Royal Lodge, one of her ladies-in-waiting said that she thought that divorce was really the only answer for Margaret and Tony. And the Queen Mother, almost in horror, said, "Well, don't tell me that you agree with divorce."
Well, divorce in the 70s was a big thing. And, remember at that time, divorcees weren't even allowed in the royal enclosure at Ascot. In many ways, it starts to burst the bubble of the perfect family myth that the monarchy like to portray.
Divorce is a very bad word, yes. And to have your sister divorcing it's uncomfortable.
But Margaret was determined, and the Queen had no real choice but to agree. In March 1976, the separation was announced.
I was with Princess Margaret when the announcement came out. On the news it said, "Now we're going to announce the divorce of Princess Margaret and Lord Snowdon." So I turned it off. And she says, no, Griffin, turn it back on. I want to see what everyone's saying about me." So I turned the radio back on, trying to be discreet, but it didn't work.
I'm desperately sad in every way that this had to happen.
2 years later, the first divorce of a senior royal since Henry VIII was finalised. It couldn't have come at a worse time. Because the country was in the grip of an economic crisis. All through the 70s, Britain was suffering strikes and inflation spiralled to over 20%. As people struggled to get by, Margaret's expensive lifestyle was splashed all over the press. But it wasn't just her. The whole royal family seemed to sail on untouched by the real world.
Windsor's old and venerable walls form a backdrop to an ancient English ceremony, the conferring of the insignia of the most noble order of the Garter.
Events like the antiquated and costly annual Garter Parade at Windsor now seem to represent not colourful tradition, but a family totally out of step with the country.
There was a sort of feeling that these sort of, we're paying for them, what for? There was a much more Republican feeling then than there is now.
The days of old-fashioned respect for your elders and betters were vanishing. And giving a shocking and loud voice to this new mood were punk bands like the Sex Pistols.
Punk rock, the latest trend in pop music. And it's music with a message to be as nasty as possible and denounce the establishment.
But if 1977 was a big year for the Sex Pistols, it was an even bigger year for the Queen. It was her silver jubilee. She was due to light a massive beacon at Windsor Castle to kick off lavish, nationwide celebrations.
Prior to those big celebrations, there was real panic in the royal household as to whether or not these things were going to be celebrated in any way.
I can remember people ringing me up from various broadcasting companies and say, "Oh, this is going to be a disaster, isn't it?"
With the threat of disaster hanging over her, the Queen headed a torchlight parade up the long walk at Windsor towards the beacon. As she lit the fire, the royal family could only wait and hope.
This is a gala day for young and old, a once-in-a-lifetime spectacle not to be missed.
The public's enthusiastic reaction to the Jubilee came as a huge relief.
But it turned out to be completely wrong. The Queen had wonderful walkabouts, and her secretary said the Queen had a love affair with the country, and she did.
The simple but heartfelt affection felt for the Queen is nowhere more evident than on occasions like this.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? I suppose they thought that the Queen was perhaps the only thing there was about to celebrate, and let's all feel we are British and happy with it. And none of your left is thank you very much.
And for the lucky ones, a memory that will always be treasured.
was quite moving in a way.
Britain, it seemed, was not ready for revolution. The Queen and the Windsors were still firmly in business. The family image was tarnished, but still intact. It was time to look to the future. The family needed a new generation. In 1978, the heir to the throne, Prince Charles, turned 30. But far from dutifully settling down to produce the next heir, he was still single and enjoying playing the field at Windsor. Charles was a member of Windsor's exclusive Guards Polo Club at Smith's Lawn, known as much for its social life as the game itself.
It was a place where everybody would go to have fun. You'd meet up and you'd have lunch, then you'd watch the polo, then you'd have tea, and it was fun. And sometimes go on to drinks afterwards. And so it was really, I'd go really for the partying. I mean, people either met at Windsor or in Annabelle's. I mean, those were really the places that everybody met. I mean, it was virtually unheard of to meet anybody except at Windsor or in Annabelle's. I'm sorry, it's true.
Charles was linked with a constant stream of girlfriends at Smith's Lawn. His racy love life made great headlines, but did nothing to help secure the future. By the summer of 1980, the pressure was beginning to tell on him. So, in June, Charles, now 32, invited a new girlfriend to the castle. She was just 18, lively and naive. She was called Diana Spencer. She was to become the most famous woman in the world, at the heart of the most extraordinary royal story of modern times.
He invited her to Windsor. She's bounding around, full of enthusiasm, excited about this new place. And she bumps into a couple of the Queen's staff, below-stairs staff, and she thrusts out her hand and says, "Hello, I'm Diana." It was an illustration that this was a young woman who wasn't quite like the normal frosty types whom Charles had been associating with up to this point.
But the 18-year-old Diana did have a great aristocratic pedigree and no form on or off the polo pitch. The royal family liked her and the nation was entranced. She seemed a perfect match.
Is there any possibility of any announcement of your marriage in the near future? Can you tell me?
For 6 months, the couple dated and the press speculated. But there was no announcement. Charles was hesitating. Prince Philip could bear it no longer. He wrote to his son a fatherly but blunt letter urging him to act.
Charles's reaction was that his father was forcing him to marry. Friends of Philip in more recent times suggested nothing was further from his mind. He wasn't forcing him to marry, he was forcing him to make up his mind whether to marry.
Whatever the advice, the letter worked. On the 6th of February 1981, Charles invited Diana to Windsor again. He arranged to meet her in an unusual, very private location, the place he'd known best in his childhood and perhaps still felt most comfortable, the castle nursery.
He went down on one knee, asked her to marry him, and she kind of was all flustered and said, "Oh, yes, please, okay." And he went off upstairs and told his mum, told the Queen. And in a way, it was all very strange. It was quite bloodless in a way. There was no great emotion.
As she stood in the nursery, Diana could have been left in little doubt about what would be expected of her.
Anybody who's going to be a Queen of England should actually understand that the nursery is going to play a very important part in their life. You know, you're not being married for your pretty smile alone. You're being married to pop out the babies. That's the reality.
6 months later, on the 29th of July, Charles and Diana got married in a spectacular ceremony at St. Paul's Cathedral. It was watched by 750 million people around the world. The House of Windsor had never been more popular. And after the wedding, the mood of optimism spread. The following year, the country emerged victorious from the Falklands War. At the beginning of the conflict, the Americans had refused to help the British wage war on Argentina and only reluctantly pitched in later. So the Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, wanted to get the special relationship with the United States back on track. Only one place would do to impress the most powerful man in the world: Windsor Castle. It had to be there that the Queen would host the first full state visit ever of an American president. Her guest would be Ronald Reagan.
The Queen said to me, "He's coming to stay for 4 days. Look at them. Look at all those cars outside," as we peeped out of the oak room window. She says, "Look at them. They've come to check out my castle, to make sure it's safe for the president." Can you believe the cheek? She said, "It's safe enough for me. Why isn't it safe enough for him?"
It had been hard for the government to persuade Reagan to visit, and Windsor Castle had been a crucial factor in sealing the deal.
Windsor Castle sends a real message to other heads of state coming here that this place has stood solid as a rock for many, many times their country's existence.
I think President and Mrs. Reagan must have thought they'd walked onto a film set, because Windsor Castle is a fantastic location on which to perform at the highest level.
Taking every advantage of this fairy tale setting, the Americans had eyed up photo opportunities for the president.
One shot the American administration wanted was the President of the United States, the cowboy, with the Queen of England riding side by side into the mist of Windsor Great Park.
But Reagan wanted more. An off-the-cuff press conference with the waiting reporters. A total breach of royal protocol, because the Queen never answers direct questions from journalists.
How do you like your horse?
Ronald Reagan edged his horse forward. The Queen sort of scowled a little bit, turned her horse to ride off, and Ronald Reagan said, "Well, no questions today," and he rode off as well.
That evening, in the lavish surroundings of the castle's St. George's Hall, the Queen was to host a spectacular state banquet for the president and 160 top movers and shakers. Every one of the castle's 500 servants had been working flat out to get everything ready.
And there's a yeoman of the cellars, there's a yeoman of the parlour.
The footmen, the underbutlers, the wine butlers.
The yeoman of the crockery, there's a yeoman of the cutlery.
The yeoman of the glass pantry, the yeoman of the silver pantry, all of them coming together in one place.
They start preparing it first thing in the morning when they bring out the long table. They don't have a tablecloth, of course, that's very middle class. Then the palace steward does actually measure each place setting with a ruler, because he doesn't want to get to the end and find someone has fallen off.
This performance has to be perfect. It's mind-boggling. There's an army of cutlery staring at you.
1,150 silver knives, forks and spoons.
There's a regiment of glasses looking at you.
630 crystal glasses. You can do the maths yourself.
What do you use for what?
It's 5 for each setting.
Eating from solid gold plates, drinking out of George III crystal goblets. It's unbelievable. It's Downton on speed.
The Queen put on the perfect show. The Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, and the whole royal family were among the guests that night.
This place symbolizes both tradition and renewal, as generation after generation of your family makes it their home. We in America share your excitement about the impending birth of a child to the Prince and the Princess of Wales. We pray that God will continue to bless your family with health, happiness, and wisdom.
Windsor Castle, its staff, and its sheer grandeur had once again done their job. Windsor is also steeped in more personal royal family traditions. Back in the 1840s, Victoria and Albert celebrated Christmas at Windsor, creating scenes we now think of as traditionally British. And in 1982, with an expanding family, the Queen decided to revive the Victorian tradition. Christmas would be spent at Windsor rather than Sandringham. And it was just as well the castle has plenty of room.
We're not talking about just someone coming with a suitcase. The Queen Mother used to travel with pictures, with oil paintings, and would completely refurnish one of her rooms. And she has dogs too. So there are dogs everywhere running amok. Queen Mother has 2 corgis, the Queen has 9 and a Labrador. Princess Margaret would bring her Dachshund, Pipkin. The place was a kennel.
As the trees were decorated at Windsor that year, it was like a moment from history. The Queen's great-great-grandparents had loved making Windsor into a winter wonderland for their Christmases.
Prince Albert, who was an aesthete and liked everything beautiful about him, created these perfect winter interiors for the Windsor Christmas. There were Christmas trees all over the room. He even, in some years, suspended Christmas trees ablaze with candles from the ceiling.
Victoria and Albert released pictures of their festive celebrations. They were hugely popular and led to a nationwide and lasting craze for decorated trees. But the pictures were about more than just Christmas decorations. The royal couple exploited another craze to project a powerful image to the country and the empire.
Victoria and Albert, they're really very early adopters of all kinds of technology, including photography. So what they do is they make actually a dark room in Windsor Castle where they can develop photos of themselves. And I think this is very interesting about their hobbies and their interest in technology, but it's also very significant because we really see the beginning there of royal spin. So Victoria uses photography to promote the notion of the monarchy that she wants to purport, which is modest, which is thrifty, dressed down.
Combining photography with their vision of Christmas was a masterstroke.
Christmas depicted in etchings and prints and later on photographs for the public to enjoy of their monarch and her consort, happy in their virtuous family circle around the Christmas tree.
Victoria released these images to the press to show there was a solid, respectable royal family living at Windsor Castle.
She and Albert create this incredibly powerful image of a simple, happy, middle-class family and a firm with all their children around them. And that was incredibly powerful and incredibly successful over Victorian society, and so powerful that even now, that's exactly how the royals show themselves.
They were really instruments of propaganda to defend the monarchy in an era of republicanism, which was very popular too.
Nearly 150 years later, it was Queen Elizabeth who was comfortable at the head of her family. Margaret's divorce was forgotten, and Charles, no longer the playboy, had married and produced a son and heir. The Queen's traditional weekend escape to Windsor could now be even more relaxing.
Friday afternoon after lunch, I would pack the Queen and her 9 corgis into the back of her little Rover. There were 2 corgis in the window at the back, 2 on the Queen's knee, 2 sat beside her, and several in the well. So the car was full of canines and a Queen. Half an hour later, she's in the countryside with her dogs and her horses.
The 5,000-acre Great Park on her doorstep has enabled the Queen to let horses dominate her weekends at Windsor. It was there that she learned to ride. She was given her first pony, Peggy, when she was only 4 years old.
She's always loved horses and dogs. She said she wanted to be a farmer's wife when she grew up, so she could have horses, keep horses and dogs.
It's the freedom to be with horses as much as anything that's made Windsor her favourite home.
Almost her entire life, when she was a very small girl, she's found horses a great solace for the pressures of state that she has. and it's become an incredibly important part of her life.
We had a saying at Windsor Castle: horses, dogs, husband, kids. That's the way it goes in the Queen's world.
The Queen will ride as much as possible when she's at the castle. Locals are used to seeing her, even in her old age, as she takes a gentle hack around Windsor Great Park in her trademark headscarf.
All she has to do on a Saturday morning is walk down a little flight of stairs, through what we call the dog door, through her garden, and she's at her stables.
Windsor's stables are huge and very private. There's an indoor riding school and room for over 100 horses. But that is only half the story. For many years, the Queen owned a large racing stable near Windsor. She's still one of the country's leading racehorse owners, with horses worth an estimated £4.5 million. She even has her own racecourse on the doorstep of the castle inside the Windsor estate.
Out in the sun or in the shade of the great trees of the paddock, this was the perfect Ascot opening day, almost up to the standard of My Fair Lady. And like My Fair Lady, there was, of course, a lot of posing.
The course at Ascot was built by Queen Anne in 1711, and every June, Royal Ascot Week is an immovable fixture in the Queen's diary. It's one of the top race meetings in the world.
The Queen loves Royal Ascot Week because it's filled with horses. And it's the time of the year when she can actually show off just a little bit by presenting to the world and the racing fraternity the best that she has. She loves it.
It's a very joyous occasion. It's about dressing up. It's about the colour of it. The colours are just completely spectacular. You have sunlight dappling through the trees onto this paddock and looking down onto sort of shiny, beautifully polished top hats and shiny, beautifully polished horseflesh and millions of pounds worth.
The Queen never misses a race. Her own horses have won there 71 times.
Perhaps the most famous was when a horse called Estimate won the Gold Cup. It was the first time I think anyone had seen the Queen cheering and getting deliriously happy about an event. It was a rather wonderful thing. Suddenly, this enormously sensible, reserved person just let her emotions go.
But it's not just the Queen's passions that have been aroused at Ascot. In 1985, Princess Diana invited her friend Sarah Ferguson to the daily Ascot lunch hosted at Windsor Castle. She found herself seated next to Prince Andrew.
During the first lunch, Andrew and Fergie were sat next to each other, lots of horseplay, feeding each other from each other's forks and spoons and, you know, messing about with bread rolls. And she was kind of like a bouncy Labrador who'd entered the royal family, and Prince Andrew was very much enamoured.
Sarah was very different from Prince Andrew's previous dates.
He'd always gone for blondes, usually actresses, usually quite glamorous. Now, Fergie was none of those. She was ginger-haired and freckly but good fun.
Andrew's colourful love life had been something of an embarrassment to the royals.
Randy Andy, he was known as. I mean, you know, once you get saddled with a nickname like that, then it's very hard.
As a bachelor in the 80s, Andrew loved spending time at Windsor. Just like Charles before him, he brought back a succession of girls to the castle. In 1984, the 24-year-old Andrew asked one of his model friends to spend some quality time in the park with him and his camera. She tastefully posed her way around Windsor, and he proudly produced his own calendar. But more controversial had been Andrew's relationship with the American actress Koo Stark, who was revealed to be the star of a soft porn film. The press had pounced on the story.
Prince Andrew had spent most of his 8 days holiday dodging Fleet Street reporters, but overnight on the plane from Barbados, they'd caught up with him.
Andrew had quickly parted company with Koo, but more girls and lurid headlines soon followed.
Other people came to the fore. There was Vicky Hodge, who he had a very short-lived, sizzling affair with, who came forward to the newspapers and did a kiss and tell, which was outrageous at the time, and the Queen was undoubtedly horrified. She wanted to step in to stop Andrew from embarrassing the family.
So, when Sarah Ferguson came on the scene in 1985, the royal family let out a sigh of relief. Sarah was already known to the Queen. Her father was the royal polo manager at Windsor.
They had all kinds of friends and connections in common. So Fergie was very much part of the furniture. She was very acceptable, and to that extent, people thought they're made for each other.
Andrew was safely married in 1986. The Queen wanted to keep her favourite son nearby. She gave the couple a piece of land to build a house at Sunning Hill on the Windsor Crown Estate. But the lavish wedding present led to a whole new set of critical headlines.
It was £5 million, 16 rooms, 12 bedrooms, it had a swimming pool, a tennis court, stables. It had everything that you could possibly want and more. But actually, in terms of architecture, people were absolutely horrified. It was a bit Trump-esque, if you like. It was very extravagant, and it shocked people.
And once installed, Fergie, now the Duchess of York, quickly forgot that royals are expected to be discreet.
She basically loved to spend. She would have the most extravagant holidays, she would party, she was known as being excessive. Sunning Hill was probably one of the biggest problems, the upkeep of it, the staff involved in looking after the family. The public was paying for that, and it did not go down well.
Far from being a safe bet to keep Andrew out of trouble, Fergie was herself turning into a headache for the Queen. But as the 80s drew to a close, that was not her biggest worry. Creeping out from behind the castle walls were rumours of a rift between the heir to the throne and his wife, Princess Diana. In the 15 years since the Queen's Silver Jubilee, the royal family had battled with scandal. Yet despite Margaret's divorce and the colourful love life of the bachelor princes, the Queen had somehow clung on to the image of herself at the head of a respectable first family. But in the summer of 1992 at Windsor Castle, this picture would finally lose its gloss and be consigned to history.
The jet set had descended on Windsor to watch the match. The Prince preferred to be chauffeur-driven to the Guards polo ground in his Aston Martin.
The problem was a secret royal liaison started on the Windsor polo fields. Charles had for years been having an adulterous affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. Camilla was married to one of Prince Charles's regimental colleagues. By the early 90s, everyone inside the royal circle knew what was going on. Even the Queen.
Of course, there's that tradition in the Guards regiments that you don't sleep or have affairs with the partners of your fellow officers. And this was getting to a stage where one of the Queen's friends and courtiers felt that she should be aware of what was going on and what the reaction was. This courtier said to her, more or less, "I think, ma'am, you should be aware that the Prince of Wales is having an affair with the wife of Andrew Parker Bowles, and the regiment don't like it." And the Queen looked down and couldn't say anything.
The Queen does not like confrontation. She kept quiet, even though she knew that if the story became public, the scandal could destroy everything she'd been brought up to protect. But in 1992, it was Diana who decided the world should know the truth. She collaborated covertly on a biography. And on the 15th of June, the Sunday Times released the first shocking extracts from the book.
It's not the photographs that have stirred the controversy, but the claims by her close friends about the state of her marriage.
Charles's affair with Camilla was revealed to the world. The Queen was at Windsor that day due to watch the polo at Smith's Lawn. She had a special guest, and extraordinarily, she stuck to her plans.
And the Queen attends a polo match, and who does she welcome there but Mrs. Camilla Parker Bowles, now, of course, the Duchess of Cornwall, but at that time seen as the other woman, the third woman in the marriage of Charles and Diana. But there was the Queen extending the hand of friendship towards her.
As far as the royal family was concerned, on the day of serialisation, it was business as usual, even though the camera crews were in very close attendance. But the Queen was just going to ignore it, to ride above it, never complain, never explain.
The royal family's default position when these sort of stories and scandals emerged was they're not true. That was always their start line. And if they weren't true, then therefore we can ignore them. Therefore, we carry on as normal.
But this time, the Queen would not be able to rise above it all. The facade of a respectable, happy family was being ripped apart as long-suppressed problems flooded out into the open. Princess Anne's 19-year marriage had already ended in divorce. At Windsor, the Queen went to great lengths to save Prince Andrew's marriage to Fergie, which had also hit the rocks.
She requested that they have a summit at Sunninghill Park. So the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh went to Sunninghill. She didn't understand why they were just simply throwing the relationship away. The Queen did everything she could that afternoon to persuade them that, you know, maybe they just stick in there, that the children were young, but nothing seemed to work.
Any hope of reconciliation was finally dashed later that year with the shocking revelation of Fergie's toe-sucking affair in the south of France. The Windsors had disintegrated into a family split by bitter divisions and adultery. It seemed things couldn't get any worse for them, but they did.
It's clear that what we're witnessing here is a national tragedy. The flames still rising from the turrets, smoke as thick as ever, the battle for control still far from over, a whole royal treasure house at risk.
In November 1992, Windsor Castle, the Queen's childhood home, went up in flames. The Queen arrived at the castle that afternoon to find huge parts of her beloved family home a smoking ruin.
The Queen was all alone, the monarch surrounded by all the detritus of a well-fought fire. She had a headscarf on and a mackintosh. She looked on the verge of tears. She probably was in tears.
Fire at Windsor Castle seemed to be significant. It seemed to symbolise the collapse of the House of Windsor.
As the Queen's home lay in ashes, so did the image of a happy and dutiful royal family. The confident silver wedding picture from just 20 years earlier seemed like it belonged to a different world, a world that would not return. The Windsors were at rock bottom. The family was discredited, the castle needed millions of pounds worth of repairs, and the public had lost faith.
I used to like them a lot at one time, but now each time you read all what's going on, you think, well, you've gone right off of them.
There's so much going on with the royal family that they're losing face, I think so anyway.
This image of the royal family as the family monarchy, the sort of the nation's family, suddenly was massively tarnished. In a sense, the monarchy's had to piece itself together ever since and find a different way of defining itself, really.
The 1990s continued to be miserable years for the royal family. But the Queen had helped raise the money for the castle restoration. And during the 5 years that it took to complete the work, the family began to look ahead. So that in 2005, Windsor could be the stage for an event that finally drew a line under the past. Charles married his former mistress, Camilla Parker Bowles, and the crowds cheered them on. By 2016, when the Queen celebrated her 90th birthday at Windsor, she was as popular as at any time in her remarkably long reign. But for this anniversary, there was no huge family portrait in a grand drawing room. The Windsors seem to have entered the modern world, presenting a more down-to-earth and realistic image of royal family values. And it's likely the castle that bears their name will remain their true home. because the future Charles III could prove even more attached to the castle than his mother.
It's part of who they are, it's part of their fabric. Charles is an enthusiast about Windsor, as his mother is, perhaps even more so. I suspect we'll see him down there full time. I can see a possibility where Charles himself will run affairs from Windsor.
The Windsors have the security of two more kings in waiting, William V and George VII, who may well be the king of the castle as we enter the next century.
Windsor Castle is a huge asset as far as the monarchy is concerned because it is solid, it is dynastic, it looks incredibly permanent, it brings dignity and power and prestige to the monarchy in a way that no other building does.
The Windsors' new image is simple. In an uncertain world, they're offering stability and continuity, just like the castle.